So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Dana. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Cleanne. I'm really happy to be here today.
You're very welcome. So, Dana, tell the listeners about you and what drove you to do things outside the box.
Ooh, the million-dollar question. So I am an adventurer by nature. I grew up on Long Island in a very, I would say, lovely but stereotypical Jewish community where everyone followed the same mold of, you go to school and then you start working, you get married, you have children, you come back to where you grew up. And from day one, I just knew that's great for some folks, but there is a world out there, and I want to explore and I want to experiment and I want to see the world essentially. So from the time I went off to university, I chose to go into the South and just experience a different region of our country. And then from the first day I started working, I said, you know what? I want to live abroad. I was able to do that a few times with a former employer. I lived twice in Amsterdam, once in London, and then most recently in Indonesia, in Jakarta, which was a truly incredible experience. And I like to think that I've become the person I am today because of all those experiences and different cultures I've encountered along the way.
Wow, that's incredible. So, from since when you were like a little girl growing up, you always wanted to do that? That was always a dream of yours?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, always had this passion for adventure and challenge and felt compelled to do things a little bit differently than everyone around me.
Nice. So Dana, why did you title your book The Youngest One in the Room?
This was an idea that came to me a few years back, and it came to me because I noticed that I was sitting in some meetings at work, and I was sometimes, the youngest one by a decade or 2 decades in some cases. I was the only female. I was the only American. I was the only whatever you want to call it. But what stuck out the most was just being the youngest one in the room. And for a while, I didn't know what to do with that. It could be intimidating. It could also be energizing as well. There's some really exciting things that come with having a different perspective, coming from a different generation. Um, and so over the years, I started to just jot down what were some of those milestone moments and memorable moments. And then in the last few years, I took it to the next level and started thinking about, okay, well, what did I learn from this? And how did those experiences shape who I am today? And after a little bit of time, I had enough content that I thought, you know what, this could be an interesting book to share with the world. And it's just one person's story, but we've all been in those situations. And I don't think enough people stop to recognize it. And I'm hoping that my book inspires people to make sense of their own journeys.
So what's the genre and of your book, and who is it for? Is it for everybody, or is it just for the corporate women that's in the field that you're in?
Really great question. So, the genre is a memoir. It's the first 10 years of my career. And I wanted to do that specifically because I haven't seen a lot out there that focuses on the early in career years. I also haven't seen a lot out there that's written by your average person who doesn't come with a big name or celebrity status, like a Sheryl Sandberg. So, what are some real learnings from a real person? And because of that, I do think there's something in there for everyone, no matter what profession you're in. I grew up in the world of communications, starting in an agency setting and then making my way to a multinational corporation. So a lot of the stories are pulled from my experience, which is from that world. But I do write it in a way in which it could relate to other professions, whether you're a teacher, an artist, because I think the lessons in there are more human lessons versus industry specific. And just one side note, I have a friend's sister read the book and she's a nurse and she read it and she said, I read it and I didn't think I'd get much out of it. And actually, I quite enjoyed it. And there's some tips in there that I'm going to take with me. So I thought that was good proof that th there is something in there for everyone.
Wow, excellent. So Dana, are you still in the boardroom or have you left the boardroom? What is it you're doing right now? Are you still doing the same thing right now, or have you moved on to something else?
I'm doing something a little bit different. There still is a boardroom involved. I'm currently working for a wonderful firm called LSG. They're actually based in Washington, D.C., but I'm still up here in New York. And they work with clients on a bunch of different topics to help them navigate some of the most impactful challenges that they're going through right now, whether that be on the communication side, from a public affairs side. So, for example, how does your company show up in today's world, with today's administration and some of the challenges that are coming at businesses left and right, whether it be tariffs or, some of the other industry issues that are hitting different companies. So I'm back on the consulting side.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So are you planning on writing another book? Do you have another book coming up? And
I would love to. I would love to. What I learned from this experience, I knew I always loved to write, but the act of actually sitting down to write a book was incredibly rewarding. And I have said since day one, whether I sell one copy or thousands of copies, this was such a win because it gave me an outlet over the last few years to dip back into my passion of writing. And so I will answer your question, but what I'll also say is if anyone out there has the desire to write, and they don't know where to start, just take a weekend, take a Friday off, sit with your pen and paper or your keyboard and experience what it feels like to write again. And then the process will take you wherever you need to go. So again, because it was such a rewarding experience, I would love to write another book. I'm a little bit caught between do I continue this theme because I could do the next installment, the next 5 to 10 years, or I've always wanted to write, something completely different, like a historical fiction novel. So I don't know which it's going to be in the short term, but I would say definitely there's a next one coming at some point soon.
wow, beautiful, nice.
Thank
So,
you.
so Dana, what is your social media links and where can the listeners get a copy of your book? Do you have any other resources about what we talked about that the listeners can actually go on your website and they can search for that?
Yes, absolutely. So the easiest way to get connected to all my platforms is to go to my website, and that's daynaadelman.com. So it's my first last name.com. And there you'll find links to where you can purchase on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, a bunch of different online retailers. You can also connect with me there via my LinkedIn and via Instagram as well.
Excellent. So, Dana, do you have any last words for the listeners about pursuing their dreams and not giving up?
Yeah. I think we live in a time that can be very challenging, and each day you're so laser focused on what needs to get done that day that we wake up one day and we realize we haven't done the things that we thought we want to be doing by this point in our lives. And I would just encourage people to stop and try to reprioritize because life goes too fast. And there's also beauty in what you're doing every day, but we don't take enough time to stop and reflect and think on it. So I would say take the time for yourself, really do it, whether it be through journaling, or if writing is not your thing, just reminding yourself, what happened this week? What was a win? It sounds so simple, but it really can flip the mind and the narrative on, perspective and give you some clarity too if you're in a position of, change and trying to think of where you want to go, what you want to do next. So it's something I learned coming out of the pandemic, and I love to share with people because I do think it's extremely powerful.
So, Dana, beautifully said. Dana, thank you for being on Beauty of Colors podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time and great conversation.